Ahead of Heritage Day, President Cyril Ramaphosa has called on the creative industry to work on nation building. In his weekly newsletter, the president says he was impressed with the recent productions, including Shaka Ilembe, which he says he never missed an episode of. We now speak to Tshepo Mashiane, who is with the Creative Congress movement, in terms of the president's call for the creative industry to do more. Thank you very much, sir, for your time this afternoon. In particular, in the president's newsletter, he says, and I read, "I call on all our creative practitioners to play a more prominent role in nation building through work that highlights the uplifting, inspiring and enduring aspects of our society and its history." What does this tell you as a creative?
Sister, thank you very much for the opportunity, and thanks to Newzroom Afrika. And let me wish all South Africans well in the commemorations of the Heritage Month, and we're looking forward to the Heritage Day. Sister, I think the President's statement, we read it with some level of comfort, but there are a number of issues that the President is missing. Amongst others is that he is speaking about Shaka Ilembe, whilst is playing on pay TV instead of the public broadcaster. And that in itself, for me, becomes a contradiction of why is it that South Africa must be encouraged to continue to produce films, but which South Africans in general will not have access to, except if you have got money to pay to watch such. And this, for me, is a contradiction, because these stories that are told, like Shaka Ilembe, is stories that young South Africans should know about. And I think the President misses a point with regards to encouraging such, whilst these go on pay TV instead of public broadcaster. I've also read the President's statement, which is encouraging to South African practitioners, creatives, that they must do more to build this nation. However, it has been a contradiction again for me, because the President, amongst others, is the one who failed to pronounce the board of SABC, which is a platform that South Africans expect to have these kind of productions being showcased. Number two, it has been quite an open secret now that the copyright bill, and especially the section on fair use, has been seriously challenged by the creative industries and practitioners. But the President has said little about the extent to which creatives are crying out loud to him to say, "President, don't sign the copyright amendment bill in its current form." And these, for me, are the contradictions that as creatives we're seeing. And it does not necessarily help us when the President makes such statements, only to find out that actually all that he's encouraging us to do is really to sell out our own productions and our own creativity to the world for absolutely free.
The Copyright Amendment Bill, just remind our viewers what is at the heart of the cries of the creative industry.
I think in general, the Copyright Amendment Bill is welcomed by the creative industries. But there is a section which speaks about fair use. Now, fair use means that anyone in the world who wants to use the intellectual property of creatives can do so without making any call, or rather contacting the owners of the intellectual property. So this section on fair use basically means that if Sistudu today were to do a production and somebody wants to use aspects of that production, they don't have to pay for it. They don't have to consult you. They'll just go and take up that particular section of your own production and use it for whatever it is that they use. So the fair use clause on the copyright bill, in actual fact, is another way of colonizing the creatives, because you can't work, Sistudu, your art and your craft. Am I access to do?
We can hear you now.
Yes, I'm saying you can't, as a creative, do a lot of work in the creative space and produce your craft, which can be simply used by any and everyone without consulting you. So that is actually what is at the center of the protest that we've seen against this clause.
In light of this newsletter and the president's encouraging words, but also some concerns that the creative industry has identified, how far have we moved the needle in South Africa in terms of artists or creatives being taken care of? I ask more specifically, when you take a look at COVID-19, the most impacted industry was the creative industry. The days of artists perishing and there's no money to bury artists, how far have we moved the needle?
Sister, do you know the creative industries have been hard hit, even post the COVID period? There is some effort in terms of recovery. We've seen the president announce the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program, which I think has, moved to some extent in terms of really recovering from the unfortunate experiences of COVID. But you would know that this industry in South Africa is one of the big industries, actually bigger than the mining and agricultural industry. However, if you look at the manner in which it is budgeted for, you would literally laugh at yourself or literally laugh at Parliament in terms of not pushing the argument that the creative industries needs to be supported. So, to tell the honest truth, if you juxtapose how much has been spent on this portfolio against the welfare of South Africans, and especially the creatives, you will see that there would be some level of contradiction, or there is something that does not align. Because if the budget of the department is 4.6 billion every year that is voted for, the question therefore becomes, where does the money go to? Because the welfare of our industry really has become something that is, that it's not something that one is proud of. And seeing the welfare and the manner in which creatives live in South Africa is just a shame. So I don't think that the government of South Africa has done well in terms of ensuring that these citizens, who are expected by the president himself to build this nation, to create a narrative that speaks to unity of purpose, of building a united country. But when you look at how much it's budgeted for, it's really a laughing matter if one would put it that way, Sister.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Tshepo Mashiane is with the Creative Congress Movement.